Hello and welcome to the Franchise Tag Betting Show, Week 3, with your host Andrew, as always, joined by Adam. Adam, we've already had a game, as always. There's always one been played before we do this show. It was the Jets at the Pats, 24-3. Start off with that. How did you feel about that game? Rodgers back to his old self a little bit. Patriots back to what we thought they were going to be, pretty poor.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, that was kind of all it was. I was a bit surprised with the Patriots. I was surprised they were as bad as what they were. Interesting choice not to use the run. It's worked for 2 games, so you've got to stop that because you might win. Stop that behaviour. So yeah, that's a bit odd to say the least. And the Jets, I thought the Jets just looked all right. To be honest, I didn't think they looked amazing. I felt like Rodgers looked a bit more like his old self. And I think Mike Williams being there makes them a much more of a threat because it's not necessarily because of him, but just because it's an extra guy that people are worried about. And yeah, so I think that they become a slightly better offense with him on the field with the rest of them.
Yeah, I mean, we said before the season started, it's going to be a heavy dose of Garrett Wilson again, and he's going to see all the ball and no one else is going to get it. But up crops Alan Lazard, and now
the ghost of Alan Lazard is definitely back. So he is, he's very much back. I think he looks good.
It won't be long before we're saying his name on this show in terms of touchdown scorers, will it?
It won't be long till Randall Cobb comes back in to start playing. That's what's going to happen. No, it won't. It probably won't be because it's like it's reaching that point where it's so obvious that he's a favoured target there. And although Garrett Wilson is there, he's getting marked out of a lot of games. Yeah, so it kind of feels almost like Alan Lazard is kind of a logical choice. So yeah, he could well end up becoming one that gets picked up in this, but not quite yet. Let's not get too excited.
Also, another guy we were very hot on coming into the draft and in the prospect, Braylon Allen. He looks the real deal. Looks like a mouse.
He looks all right. He was going to be good. Yeah, I mean, he was the sort of bigger bodied running back, wasn't he, of the whole class? He was the one that we kind of felt looked good, and the downside was always going to be the fact that he was behind Breece Hall and he just wasn't going to get the opportunities, but he seems to be getting the opportunities anyway. So yeah, I think that he could be pretty good for them and a little bit different to Breece Hall, kind of not like ridiculously different, but just a little bit different, offers something a little bit different, and I think he'll do all right
there. Now, last week in the Franchise Tag 5, we got another 3 out of 5. Seems to be common now. We had that
got
one.
3 out of 5. You mean?
Well,
you got 3 out of 5.
We as a podcasters,
Oh, okay. I apologise. Yeah.
I mean, there was only one game. So last week there was one game you said. Week prior, there was one you said, I'm unsure about that one. That one came in. So you were wrong. This week, you said there was one you were unsure of, and you were correct this week with the going with the Cardinals instead of the Rams. But then you had the big shocker of the 49ers losing to the Vikings. So that was the big upset and that spoilt it quite the most. Fingers crossed, although I found this week really, really difficult to actually pick 5. So let's jump into it and hopefully we can break the curse of only getting 3 and maybe get a 4th.
Great. That's what we want, isn't it? Let's get 4 out of 5 and then we'll still lose. That is brilliant.
We're getting closer.
Okay.
The payoff on these is over. It's like 125 quid, Adam. Don't you worry about it. So right, straight into it. My first game I have got, first one I chose, was the Seahawks at home against the Dolphins, -4.5. I just felt like the Dolphins now backup quarterback, unsure of how well he's going to be able to deliver the ball. He didn't get the wide receivers involved overly that much when he came in. Seahawks look good. DK Metcalf, Jackson Smith and Jigba's getting used a lot more as well now. Obviously, with that run game, it doesn't matter whether it's Charbonnet or Ken Walker that's in. Both excellent. And Ryan Grubb seems to be, working that offense really, really well, like we thought he would for the Seahawks. So -4.5. I think they can win by a touchdown and more in this one. Adam, how do you feel about this one?
Yeah, I think they looked decent, didn't they, last week, the Seahawks? They did well. They got JSN involved a hell of a lot more than what they have done before. And I think that's probably the future for them with DK Metcalf and him. They certainly look like more of an offense in that respect. They're still missing Ken Walker, which is a huge miss for them. Zach Charbonnet just isn't. It kind of feels like he's not really a replacement for him. It feels like it's quite a big drop off, and the run game sort of disappears a little bit with him. I think he, anyone who's got him in fantasy, I think it's very much more of the fact that he's just getting so much work is why he becomes relevant rather than what he actually does with it. Yeah, I think that for that reason, the Seahawks look good. As you said, I think the defense actually does look okay, and the stats kind of bear that out. They struggle against the run a little bit, but they are pretty good against the pass. And when you think of this Dolphins offense, yes, you would expect Devon Achan to get involved quite a lot, and I believe Raheem Mostert's back as well. It's a bit game time sort of thing, but they seem to be trending that way. It kind of feels that they will use the run, and the Seahawks are a team you can run against, but they are very, very good against the pass. The Seahawks are currently tied second over the 2 games, and it feels like that really is kind of the MO of the Dolphins. It is get the ball out quick to Tyreek and Waddle and use that speed. And I just get that feeling that the Seahawks might be able to nullify that a little bit, because you got to think, it's Skylar Thompson, isn't it? It's not going to be like massive long throws down the field to these guys. I think it's going to be like short throws and almost like maybe like 10-yard throws if you're lucky, and then use the speed in order to pick up the yards. I think that because of that, I think you're probably right with the Seahawks winning this game. The -4.5, that's fine. I think they'll win. I don't think they'll blow them out. I think that what will happen is that Mike McDaniel will have created plays that basically gets Tyreek involved and gets Jalen Waddle involved. And you're going to see like some jet sweeps and stuff like that, where it's almost like these running plays will be more so that Thompson isn't used quite as much. But yeah, I do think that the Seahawks over the course of a whole game will just have that little bit more, and I think they'll probably win it by a touchdown. So -4.5 is fine with me. Yeah.
Yeah, I like I said, I had it pegged at 7 to 10 that they might win by, so that was all right. And they've got one of the best secondaries in the league with a spoon and Woolen and Julian Love. So they might be able to keep force the errors. With Leonard Williams getting some pressure on Skylar Thompson, I think the errors are there to be had that maybe Tua wouldn't, with his experience, have done. So I think there's opportunity for turnover as well for that defense. So yeah, just I like that. Next up is the Houston Texans at the Minnesota Vikings. I've gone with the Texans. I know they haven't. It's almost like I've seen them over the last 2 weeks, and they look like they haven't quite got out of second gear yet. They still look like there's more to come from them. They haven't looked as dominant as they did last year, whereas the Vikings, they have, but I'm just not sure whether I'm convinced whether that can continue and how long it continue. Whereas the Texans, I think they only need a game to click, and they'll be destroying anyone that's possible. And it's only -2, so the field goal is in play here, and I think that's enough for me to want to put my money on the Texans.
Yeah, I like the Texans for this one. It's going to be, I think you're probably going to find that a lot of people are always going to go against the Vikings and then probably wish that they hadn't. That's kind of how this season is going to pan out for them, I think. Currently, when you look at it, the Vikings they've done well this season, and obviously Darnold has shown that he is a competent quarterback. And all the time you've got someone like Justin Jefferson there, you're going to you're going to get quite far. It's just what it is because he's just so good. Defensively, they've been getting a lot of plaudits defensively, but if you actually look at the stats, it's certainly the yards that they've been giving up. They're currently 25th against the pass. This Texans team has kind of I feel like they've pushed towards the run quite a lot so far. But Mixon is questionable. We don't know if he's going to play or not. I think that's a big thing. And last year, you saw with the Texans, they're very, very capable with the passing game. CJ Stroud is going to be great with that. He's got Nico Collins, who I know has got a couple of injuries, but is meant to be playing. He's now got Stephon Diggs as well. He's still got Tank Dell. Can we please give the ball to Tank Dell? Would be lovely at some stage. And so it does just kind of feel like I think the Texans are one of these teams. It doesn't matter if they focus on the run or if they focus on the pass. They can beat you either way. And Stroud is a more than enough capable quarterback to do that. I think they're going to focus on the pass because the Vikings have been giving up the yards in the first two games, and it's going to continue in this game as well. Because of that, yes, they're away from home, but it's only -2. I think it's a really nice line for them. I completely understand why the bookies have got the Texans as favourites, because I think in the grand scheme of things, I think the Texans are just a much better team than what the Vikings are. And also, I think they can exploit the weakness of the Vikings, which does seem to be giving up a lot of passing yards, and therefore putting yourself in position to score. So, yeah, Texans -2 is quite nice for me.
Yeah, they're still without Addison. They're still without Hawkinson. I just can't see it continuing to be as good as what it is. And you say that Mixon's out. Cam Akers is the one that's coming in, and I don't think he's ever really had a drop off for me. Obviously, the injuries. Obviously, it didn't work for him at the Rams because he didn't fit there. But before he didn't fit, he was a lot of people's go-to guy for fantasy for that year, and I think he's taken the good advantage of his opportunities. Pre-season, he won a spot. Last week we saw him come in and lead the rushing. I know it wasn't a lot. I think he had 7 for 32, something like that. But I've got faith in Cam Akers, and if he stays healthy, we know he's a good running back. So I'm not worried about the run game too much if that's who's filling in for the Texans. So.
Yeah, I'm not worried about it. I just think that it is a significant drop off compared to what Joe Mixon can do, and obviously that's where it becomes a problem. So it's but it just doesn't matter. I don't think it matters with the Texans. I think they're capable of beating you either way, and they're going to be like that against a lot of the teams that they face this year.
And then next up, I've gone for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at -6.5 at home against the Denver Broncos. The Denver Broncos, I think they'll really want to try and win this game. I do think that, they don't want just L's on the sheet for the whole season. So this might be one they're looking at. But Bo Nix has really struggled. It seems like the transition's been very difficult. They're, maybe struggling with play calling and reading the field. I don't know. Everything's a bit quicker come the regular season than it is in preseason. And the Buccaneers seem to have picked up where they left off last year. They look good. Baker looks good. The wide receivers are well. Chris Godwin's healthy and looking absolutely incredible. Mike Evans is always dangerous. Haven't quite got the run game going yet, but they've always seemed to struggle with that. But yeah, I know they've got Vita Vea's out, so there might be, there's a couple of injuries there for the Buccaneers. But on the whole, I think we said this before. They brought a lot of people back. It's a very experienced unit that are used to playing together, and it did well last year. So I see them getting the win against the Broncos.
Yeah, I would be surprised if the Bucs didn't win this game. I think they are right to be quite heavily favoured. The -6.5 obviously brings in the touchdown and a field goal and an extra point to win. So I think that it's quite a high line, but I think it's probably quite a fair line when you look at what the two teams have created over the first 2 weeks. The Bucs just look a much stronger unit all round. Interestingly, defensively, on the amount of passing yards they give up, they're not quite as strong as a lot of teams. They're currently 29th, but then you've got to remember they did go up against the Lions in the last game, and the Lions passed the ball a lot. I mean, Jared Goff had, I think it was something like 55 attempts or something. So I think that was the reason that they are so far down the list is probably because of that. The Broncos, there just isn't any offense. As you said, Bo Nix hasn't really got going. I think it's going to be tough for the whole season for this Broncos team. There isn't any massively exciting weapons on the offense, I would argue. There's some are okay. I think Javonte Williams can be good as a running back. The Bucks they're kind of mid-table against the run at the moment, so maybe he can exploit something there. But you really need, I think, if you're going to be an offense like this, you need a defense like the Steelers in order to be able to cover the loss of the deficiency of the offense. The Broncos that are not the Steelers when it comes to the defense, and although they're okay, they're just not that good, and I think that's where the problem comes in. So I think if you can't, if I remember, they didn't get a touchdown, did they, against the Steelers last week?
No. What?
If you,
Yeah. And,
I know the Steelers defense is very good, but if you're not even getting like 10 points, and it just feels like this Bucks defense is still competent and still capable of keeping scores down as they did against a very strong Lions offense. So yeah, I think when you put all that together, the Bucks should win it relatively easily. -6.5 is high, but I do like it because I think that they are much better.
Yeah, I mean, Pat Surtain got worked by George Pickens quite a bit last week at the Steelers. So, he's now got either Godwin or Mike Evans to contend with.
Yeah.
So if it's Mike Evans that he's on, I think that's a tough matchup for him as well. So
I think that's the other thing with the Bucks that a lot of people probably aren't talking about. They've got a few more options. I think that's something that is useful for them and something that maybe they were missing last year. And so because of that, you kind of feel like they'll probably be able to do a bit more. Evans obviously on the outside, but Godwin looks fit. He looks great. He's going across in the slot a lot of the time, so he's doing really well. You've got the likes of McMillan who's come in and looked decent at times. Cade Otton is a weapon that's there. There's multiple options now for Baker to be able to sort of like get the ball out and get it out to different people. And I think that's where you're starting to see a slightly better offense compared to what it was a couple of years ago. So yeah, I like them for it. I think they'll be okay.
My next one I've chosen is the Buffalo Bills at -5 at home against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, for me, I've watched a bit of the Jags. I've been on telly a little bit. One of my best mates is a Jags fan. They've looked absolutely terrible. He's telling me how terrible they look all the time. The decision making, the play calling, something's not right. And I think Doug Peterson might be on the hot seat very soon if this carries on, because it's not clicking. They're throwing things away. They're making silly mistakes. And the Bills, on the other hand, I was said before the season started, I was still high on the Bills. It was still their division to lose. I still thought they'd win their division comfortably, and they've come out and they've played well, and they've put their critics to bed by the results that they've had. So I think, Josh Allen's already come out the gates flying. So I can't see how I can see them losing by, it's 2 field goals. It's the -5. I feel like it's a nice line. I feel they'll win again, another game that I can see winning by 7 to 10 points. Just don't see how the Jags put points up against the Bills because they've really struggled.
Yeah, I'm surprised that it's -5. I thought when you think the Bucks are -6.5, I thought you'd be looking at a similar line for this one. So the fact that it's -5, I quite like that. I think that's a decent one to go for. As you said, it's going to be difficult for the Jags to put points up against this Bills defense. They are not the best defense in the league, but they are a pretty solid unit, and I think that I would say they're better than the Bucks defense. I think that they certainly look good, and I think the pass rush especially looks very good. So I think that unless this O-line of the Jags is going to sort themselves out in the space of a week, I think that Trevor Lawrence could be having a pretty horrible time in Buffalo. When it comes to the Jags, they just don't seem to be doing anything that much on offense, and the only bright spark is Brian Thomas. It really is the only one who looks like he's going to be able to create a big play out of nothing, be able to just do something that's a bit different. And when it comes to the rest of them, obviously Evan Ingram has been out, so that's been a massive loss from. He was like the safety net, wasn't he, for Trevor Lawrence, so losing him is massive. But the whole sort of like the run game just isn't really doing anything. Trevor Etienne has looked disappointing. Christian Kirk has been disappointing.
Trevor Etienne's at college, so that'd be very surprising.
The other, this is what happens when I start watching college stuff. Yeah. This is what I mean. It's just like it's just not happening, and I don't know why. It's funny because at the beginning when we did predictions before the season started, the Jags, I was very much like, I don't think I think they've missed their opportunity. I don't feel like they're really doing much. You even had them down as third behind the Colts and the Texans in this division. And it just kind of feels very much like they're not, I don't know, there's just something not quite right at the moment in Jacksonville. And it's almost like they're waiting to come over to the UK. They get themselves 2 wins when they come over here. Maybe that's what they need, because at the moment in Jacksonville, it is not happening. And they had a really rough game last weekend. I know the Browns defense is decent, but even still, you would expect to be getting more than what they got. And so they really struggled. The Bills are just a very good all-round team. As you said, Josh Allen's going to be fine. James Cook, I think that he'll be fine. The Jags are 30th when it comes to giving up passing yards. I like Keon Coleman this week. I think he'll get involved. Dalton Kincaid as well, -5. I'm happy with that.
Yeah, as I said before, the hot seat for Doug Peterson. The owner has even come out and said this is the best team that they've had, and they've just signed Trevor Lawrence to a big deal. How many more games do you think they can lose before they think about making a move?
I don't know. I always find it really difficult to work out exactly the amount of games when it comes to NFL. It seems like some teams it's very much owner focused, isn't it? I mean, some teams literally, they will just rip the Band-Aid off after about 3 or 4 weeks. And then other teams will go all the way through the season. And you just sort of think, why? Why did you? It's clearly not working. So I suppose it's really dependent on what kind of owner you've got. I don't really know he's never come across as though he makes rash decisions from what I can remember. I feel like he's always made a decision because it was like an obvious thing to do, like Urban Meyer and stuff like that. It was an obvious thing to do. So I don't think he's necessarily a rash decision kind of guy, but I think this is a team that in Jacksonville, they probably thought they were going to have a legitimate chance of winning this division. If they're like 0-4, 0-5, you've really got to start asking questions, because that's not obviously going to happen, is it? If you're 0-4 and 0-5 or that sort of score, that sort of thing. So yeah, probably around week 5, 6, I reckon.
Yeah, well, they've got obviously the Bills this week and then the Texans the following week, so that could be on the cards for them. The last one, I really struggled to put in a 5th team into this. I went up and down, looking at the lines, looking at the scores, and I just went, you know what, I'm going to go with someone I think's going to win, rather than analysing and going, the spread's really big on that, or this team should beat them. So I've gone for a team that I personally like this week, and that's the Detroit Lions, who have struggled a little bit, but they're going up against the Arizona Cardinals this week. I know a lot of people are very high on them after their performance last week, and I think that's why this line is now only -3. I think it started at -5, I think, prior to that. So it's come in quite a bit, a lot of money on the Cardinals. So now it's at -3. I'm taking the Lions for this one. They love to throw the ball, and Arizona is probably better at stopping the run rather than the throw, and they made some mistakes against the Bills, and the Bills capitalized quite well on that, and the Cardinals then struggled to get back into the game. And I feel like the Lions, with how explosive they are, they're going to want to get the ball to Amon-Ra St. Brown and Laporta. They've got the two good running backs as a tandem. I feel like defensively, they're going to get pressure on Kyler. He's going to be scrambling around. I know he's dangerous when he is, but it's going to be tough for him. And I like the Lions in this one at -3.
Yeah, so the fact that it's come into -3, I mean, first, it's a horrible number, as you well know, and anyone who watches this knows that -3, you're going to be done on the field goal and end up with a push. So it's a horrible number. I don't like it at all. It does go to show that obviously there is favour in the Cardinals from the betting markets. I think that's probably quite an overreaction to last week, and the way that the Cardinals won very well, but a lot of people, you've got to remember that the Rams were
not the Rams.
Obliterated by injuries on that O-line, and was exactly the reason why I wasn't interested in backing that game last week. I've said, and I'm not going to change my mind on it. I think I'm probably going to stick to it for most of the season when it comes to the Cardinals. They're going to be an explosive offense. Their defense is going to give up points against teams that are fit. And this Lions offense is very good. So the Cardinals are going to give up points to this Lions offense. I can't get involved with it. It's you can't get involved with the Cardinals in this. You just don't know what's going to happen. They could quite easily put up 30 points against the Lions. Easily. They could quite easily give up 30 points against the Lions. It's the same thing. It could go either way. Both of the Cardinals' offense is legit with Marvin Harrison there. And if you've got Marvin Harrison, if you've got a run game that is going well under James Conner, and you've got a safety net in Trey McBride, you're going to have a good offense. But the defense just does give up points. It will give up plenty of points. And so you can't rely on them. The Lions are a good team, but have struggled so far this season. It's
only been 2 weeks. It's only been 2
weeks.
weeks.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, all of this is only, you can say it's only 2 weeks and stuff like that, but they have struggled so far these 2 weeks. And I think they'll get it together. They seem to be playing slightly different on the offense to what they did last year. Jameson Williams seems to have completely taken over, which just feels strange that is the way it's going. They need to get back to the run game and get back to doing that more and using Gibbs more as a runner as well as a passer, but also using Montgomery more as a runner as well. And it kind of feels like it's almost like they've gone, well, we're a really good team now. So now we have to show that we can play like exciting football as well. And it just kind of, to me, it feels like they've gone away from that kind of smash mouth approach that they had. It's surprising. But yeah, I mean, either team could win this.
Yeah,
You're mad.
It almost feels like Ben Johnson's gone. They've seen a lot of me now. They know what I'm going to call. I'm going to try something different, and he hasn't quite got it right yet. So I think he will do though. I think it might be tough for the Cardinals to get. I know they have got James Conner is playing excellent at the moment, but I feel like it's going to be harder to run against the Lions than it was against the Rams. Aiden Hutchinson's going to be getting a lot of pressure on them. Marcus Davenport, DJ Reed has been playing well as well. So I do think that's going to be tough for them. And like I said, I just think Lions are going to be able to force mistakes. And when that happened against the Bills, that's when it turned and the Bills put the pressure on and went and won it. And I feel like the talent that's on offense for the Lions is more than the Bills. So The O-line is one of the best in the league. Jared Goff, when protected, is fantastic. So that's for me is why I've gone for it and think it's enough, and we might see a bit more of the Lions. But I do understand where you're coming from. I do understand that it was the last one I put in there, and I did really, really struggle to pick one because in a minute we're going to ask you which one I missed. So
I think it's a fair enough assumption. Everything you've come up with makes sense, and there's logic to it, and that's fine. The problem is that I just think there's so much when it comes to the Cardinals that you just don't know what you're going to get. And that's what scares the hell out of me. When it comes to this bet, get involved with touchdown scorers by all means. But when it comes to this bet, they're a horrible team to work out what is going to happen and what you're going to get.
So, Adam, as always, this seems to be a common thing. You like 4 of them, you don't like one of them. Let's take that one out. Which one have I missed, and which one would you be putting in there this week?
So it was very difficult. I do agree with you. It was quite hard this week. I was really tempted to go for the Chargers against the Steelers, just purely because it's 1.5. But that was one that I was tempted to go to. But the one that I am going to go for, and the reason partly I'm doing this is because it is in the field goal range as well with -2.5, is I'm going to go for the Saints against the Eagles. Now, the reason that I'm going for this is I don't know what's happened in New Orleans. I don't know how come Derek Carr has suddenly become the best quarterback ever known to man in the first two weeks.
Clint Kubiak.
That's where, yes, that's the only thing I can sort of bring it down to, is that Clint Kubiak has turned up and all of a sudden that offense looks pretty decent. They still have a solid defense. They're not the best defense, but they're still a pretty solid defense. And AJ Brown is going to be out for the Eagles. The Saints are third when it comes to against rushing yards. I would argue with AJ Brown out, Saquon Barkley is probably the best player on the offense for the Eagles. And that Eagles defense has not sorted itself out. It really hasn't. So 25th against giving up rushing yards, 28th against giving up passing yards in the 2 games that they've played. Obviously, the Packers game in Brazil was a bit of a weird game because of the field and stuff like that. But last week, they were playing against the Falcons team that basically everyone was coming out and saying the offense was, after week 1, was done and wasn't very good. All of a sudden, what are we saying? Are we saying that the Falcons are world beaters now? Because Kirk Cousins is suddenly great at it again and stuff like that. So I think part of it is that Cousins was a bit better and the offense was a bit better, but predominantly the defense hasn't sorted itself out. And historically, Vic Fangio has normally taken quite a bit of time in order to be able to get that defense sorted wherever he's been. I think if you put all of that in together, as I said, it's just working with the Saints at the moment. I think they are just one of these teams that you're just best to stay in the flames with, because I think that they have just got something sorted at the moment and you're better off sticking with them than not. So -2.5 to win by a field goal. I don't think they'll win it by a lot, but I think they've definitely got a good shout of winning this. And as you said, very difficult week. So I'm going to go for that because at least I can throw some reason behind it.
Yeah, I mean, I like that bet. It was one that I would like, but equally, on the other hand, I could see the Eagles coming out and looking like the old Eagles and
possibly
blown out, which is why I wouldn't go near it. But I completely agree with you. The Eagles are on a short week. AJ Brown is out, and the stats, if you look at them for Hurts when AJ Brown's not there, drop dramatically. They've really struggled on defense. They've heavily invested in that defense, and it's really struggled on both the front seven and in the backfield as well. And the Saints, like you said, it's the Shanahan blueprint, isn't it? It's exactly copy and paste from what you're seeing from the 49ers, and they've got a very similar running back as well. Alvin Kamara is very CMC like, isn't he? He can run the ball and he can catch the ball. So it's very much that. O-line's playing well. Fuaga looks brilliant. So, Derek Carr, if you put him in the 49ers, would be going his MVP. Like Brock Purdy, it's very, very similar. And Shaheed looks good now. Olave's getting involved a little bit. So, they've got some nice pieces. They should do well. Their defense, I think, is really underrated. I don't think a lot of people talk about how well the Saints defense is actually been playing over the last couple of years. So, because they've been so bad. So all signs point towards Saints winning this one. It's the Eagles, and I just think, could I say yes? Because before, if you got this bet on Sunday, it was the other way around. The Eagles are the favourites. They were the favourites to win this game on Sunday before everything happened for this week coming up. So, do you think someone who was favourite and then is now an underdog? I'd like to go away and have a look at how many times that has happened and how many times when you've gone from favourite to underdog, you win, because that would be interesting to look at. Do you think there's anything in that? Go from a favourite to an underdog in that short period of time?
Not desperately. I think it's just that people are just probably coming to the same conclusions that we are, where you just sort of like you look at the theory and the logic, and you sort of come out and go, well, it seems to be working there. It's maybe not working quite as well at the Eagles, and why not? I mean, they should be 2-0. Really, I mean, they should have. There was no reason. It was just bad play calling. That's all it was. And it's like, I mean, everyone was going at Nick Sirianni because of it. But I mean, who makes the calls? So maybe someone else should have been getting an earful on that one. It's like I'm no fan of Sirianni, but like at the same time, you bring Kellen Moore in, he's meant to make the calls for the offense, isn't he? And I was surprised that it wasn't just, they were 4 yards away, and it was third down. Why was it not just hand it off to Barkley, run, and then like every time you hand it off to him, he gets a couple of yards at least, and then do your famous move. It's like I don't get it.
Ultimately, if you're the head coach, you can overrule it, can't you? You can be like, no, we're not
you
doing
can,
that.
Yeah, of course, and that's something else.
I think there's a lot to be said as well after the game where he let Jalen Hurts talk to the team and he didn't. I find that very odd.
Yeah, I mean that's not really what you want from your head coach. So there's clearly problems there, and it's something that, to be honest, probably should have been sorted out last year before this season even started. But I'm just saying, I think there are more things than just the idea of, let's get rid of Nick Sirianni and everything's going to be roses is maybe a little bit off.
Another one we'll talk about just before we go into our touchdown scorers, because we've got time. Your Green Bay Packers, apparently Jordan Love might be playing. They're currently underdogs, 2.5, 2.5 underdogs against the Titans, where I'm pretty sure Will Levis will just throw you the ball and give it to you to score touchdowns. You've proved that you don't need to throw the ball. You can just run it as much as you want and still win games. So are you surprised that you're the underdogs in this? And would you have some money on the money line?
I'm not surprised that we are underdogs. I think that the Titans are a pretty solid defense and have been all the way through. They're the number 1 against passing and number 10 against rushing so far in these 2 weeks. I think because of that, that's probably why you're seeing what you're seeing. I know that Love has been out there and he has been practicing. I would be surprised if he played, to be honest. I think it would be quite surprising to see him out there. I think they'll probably go with Malik Willis. I think he's obviously capable of being out there. And so because of that, I think they're probably using that as a form of, he might play. But in reality, I would be very surprised to see him there. And I think the Titans defense is decent. It's not too bad. It's done well. It's not getting the credit that it deserves. Yeah. But it's the offense. The offense is a problem, obviously. Will Levis is not great. And I'm sure Xavier McKinney will get himself another pick. So
you trying to rub that in?
Yeah, I just thought I'd throw that to you. There you go. So, but yeah, I think it will be very close. I think it'll be similar to what it was last week, the sort of 16-10 win. I think you're looking at a similar thing again. And yeah, I wouldn't be backing it just because of that. You don't know which way it'll go.
Just think if he gets the nod and he is in, I think this line will change to being the favourite.
Oh yeah, I would be surprised if he did. But yes, I agree. If all of a sudden he's in, you probably flip it round and maybe a little bit more as well.
Which is why I would, is it worth a bit of a nibble on just in case? Adam, touchdown scorers, who do you like?
So for my over 2-1 ones that we looked at, so for the Chicago Bears, they are going up against the Indianapolis Colts. The Colts are 32nd against the run. They struggled, obviously, against the Packers, as we were saying last week, but they struggled in the first week against the Texans as well.
Struggle against the run, but Chicago can't run the ball.
Well, they are struggling to use the run, but and we saw last week, they can get towards the goal line, and when they get towards the goal line, they've got a big back there who can do something. And so Khalil Herbert at 5-2, quite like the look of him for that one. A lot of people are going, is this going to be the week DeAndre Swift goes off? He's going, logic suggests that he should. I just don't think he's quite good enough, to be honest. I don't think he's quite got it. And I think he'll do okay, but I would rather be going for the goal line back because I think that they've got a chance getting there. 5-2 for Khalil Herbert is the one that I quite like. For the Packers side, going up against the Titans, as we were saying, it's difficult not to take the price on Dontavian Wicks. He's 5-1 anytime. Yeah, keep going down. Keep going. There you go. Scored last week with Malik Willis. Everyone knows how much I like Wicks. I think he's excellent at getting separation. I think he will do really well again this week. I don't think he's going to be amazing, but I think that there is the potential that he could get that touchdown. And so given that he is the one at the bigger price, I'd rather be taking him than any of the others. Jaden Reed obviously is appealing at 11-5, but I just feel like I think that it could be a 16-10. I think there could be one touchdown, and because of that, I think I'd rather punt for the big price and just have a small bet on it and hope that it pays off again. So I like the look of Wicks. In the Texans game, I think that what we started seeing last week in the Texans when Texans played was that Tank Dell is just not getting involved enough. But all of a sudden, it was noticeable that he was starting to be. It was almost like they were trying to get him involved more. There was some end arounds and sort of that sort of move where they were using him. I'm wondering. I think he might get involved a bit more this week. He's 2-1 again, a little bit similar in the fact that they've got three really good wide receivers here. I know Nico Collins is going to get the ball a lot, but they've got to get Tank Dell involved at some point. And so 2-1, I think it's worth having a go at. Also going up against the Vikings defense that's 26th against the pass, as we said before. So I just quite like that one. For the Bills, already mentioned Keon Coleman. Keon Coleman is 12-5, going up against the Jags defense that is 30th against the pass. I think that he's a really good option. Dalton Kincaid is also a really good option, but obviously a little bit shorter. But I just think that Keon Coleman, I think he's going to be one of these guys, a little bit Mike Williams like. I think he will get involved in games and then disappear in others. I think you can score against these Jags cornerbacks. And so like the look of Keon Coleman for this. The Ravens Cowboys game. Now the Ravens are 32nd when it comes to giving up passing yards, which surprised me a little bit because they're a very good defense, or at least they have been. And I was trying to go through it, and obviously they've gone up against the Chiefs. So you sort of think, okay, well, the Chiefs are a pretty strong offense, but predominantly run the ball. And then the Raiders are another team who normally try and run the ball, but the Raiders can't run the ball at the moment. So this is what I think. I think that the Ravens' defense against the pass being the worst in the league at the moment is a bit of an outlier, and I don't think they're quite as bad as what it is. However, I do think that you can score against them. Brandon Cooks at 12-5 just looks like a decent bet. That I think that he's another one. He gets involved sometimes, doesn't all the time, but I like the look of him for that one. And then finally, my last one on Sunday Night Football, the Falcons against the Chiefs. The Chiefs are actually 31st against the pass. So arguably the two best teams in the AFC have given up the most yards when it comes to passing in the first 2 weeks. Again, I think it's probably something a little bit similar to the Ravens, but the point is that you can. This is kind of me cheating a little bit because it's 15-8, but Drake London at 15-8, I think is a fairly solid bet. He got a touchdown last week. I'm hoping that it kind of creates a bit of a partnership with him and Cousins, and so I think 15-8 for Drake London is worth going for.
Yeah, I was going to talk about this Chiefs Falcons game, just because obviously Pacheco's out now, which I think dramatically weakens the Chiefs. I think he's very underrated in what he does for that team. We haven't seen loads from Kelsey. Worthy's only got involved in some trick plays. Very much just Rashee Rice again. Obviously, we saw the Falcons play so well. Don't think the Chiefs are overly great at stopping the run. Obviously, Bijan and Algier both very good. Could you see an upset in this game?
Yeah, I think it's pretty plausible when you think about it. I think Pacheco coming out is tough for them. From the bits that I've seen, I'm not overly impressed with Carson still. I think he's okay. He could probably do. Yeah, he can do a job, but that's about it. Samaje Perine shouldn't hold any fear for anyone. Kareem Hunt's literally just been brought in again. I mean, he might get involved, but I wouldn't be too concerned against about that. And the only thing is that Atlanta are pretty weak against the run in the first 2 weeks, so it is a weakness of them. So you might find that someone like Kareem Hunt might get involved straight away, but it's not really somewhere I'd want to be.
He's not.
He's practice squad, isn't he?
But he's not been on a team. Wasn't in preseason.
No, this is what I mean. Yeah,
I can't see him being fit enough to take any snaps.
No, so it feels very very unlikely in that respect. I think it's going to be very much reliant on Mahomes doing what Mahomes does, basically. I think that they're going to have to. Rashee Rice is going to get targets for days. I mean, he's just going to get everything, and they're just going to have to try and work it out in the way that they always do. I won't be backing against the Chiefs. I gave up on that long time ago. So
I mean, I just thought I'd talk about it because I think there is potential of an upset in this game, but nowhere.
Yeah, I get that there is logic to it, but it's the Chiefs and they defy logic. So that's the end of that.
We've done too many times putting our money on the opposition when we think the Chiefs are going to lose. Adam, let's look at the trebles. I'll go first because we've had enough of you for a little while talking. Right, my early treble, I've gone for Chris Godwin, 7-4. Obviously, we've already spoke about the Bucks. We think they're good. We think Godwin's playing well at the minute. He's fit and healthy, so I've not notched him in there. I've then gone for Nico Collins at 5-4 against the Vikings. I think he's the guy that's going to be getting the touchdowns for them. Said he was the number one for them, not Dell. And that seems to be coming true. And then my last one is a guy, I'm going with the hot hand here as well again, and that's Rashid Shaheed at 7-4 against the Eagles. Seems to be getting a lot of the ball, seems to be dangerous downfield. all of that together, these three are all quite hot hands at the moment. 16-1. I thought they were really good odds for three people who are playing really well at the moment.
Yeah, I like them. I like them so much that I've got two of them. So it's
come to that part of the season, that's it.
Yeah, pretty much. But that's normally positive. When this sort of thing starts happening, that's normally means that there's a reason behind it. Chris Godwin, 7-4 for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. As we said, I think that they can score against the Bucks, and he's getting an insane amount of targets. He really is for them, the highest one in the team, and I think he's fit. That's the important thing. I think last year he wasn't fit. This year he is 100% fit, and he looks good. So yeah, I like him at 7-4. Also gone for Rashid Shaheed, 7-4. As you said, hot hand. I think that they're going to be able to go over the top against this Ravens, not the Ravens, sorry, the Eagles defense. And I think you can exploit that. It's clearly something that the Saints are going to have as part of their offense now. And Shaheed looks very good. He kind of looked pretty good at the beginning of last year, didn't he? And then he I think he got injured, and that was it. But yeah, he looks decent. So I've gone for him as well. And then finally, and this is the problem one, but we've gone for it because of the price and the numbers. Just, I mean, the targets that he's getting is ridiculous. Predominantly because there's no one else. We're going for Malik Neighbours at 21-10. Now, I don't think that the Giants are going to do anything much against the Browns. I don't think the Browns are amazing. I think they can compete.
I think they've got a great chance of covering the spread. I'm just 6.5.
Yeah, I can see that. I can see this being a field goal.
Yeah,
a field goal loss. I really can, and so I think the spread. I agree with you on that. It's. I mean, I can't remember. I'll try and get it up, but the amount of targets that this guy is.
Was it 18 targets he got last week?
I don't know. He's had 25 in 2 games. And there just isn't anyone else. That's the thing. There just isn't anyone else at all. And so I just really like it. So yeah, Godwin, Shaheed, Neighbours, 22.44-1.
Yeah, it's very, very good odds. Might swap out Nico Collins, put Neighbours in there. My late one, Adam. It's all wide receivers again. Why have running backs have been?
Yeah, I found this. Do you not find that the running back odds are incredibly short?
It's because they've been very efficient. Running backs are being used a lot more, and we're seeing a bit of a change in. It's not just wide receivers being the dominant one. So I think that's why. But I've got 3 excellent names on the board. 2 of them are, we've seen them get in the end zone a lot in their career. So first one up is Devontae Adams at 13-10 against the Panthers. Panthers obviously struggling big time, and Adams is a big time player. So see him getting in the end zone. Next one is DK Metcalf at 13-8 going against the Dolphins. I think the Dolphins are going to struggle against the Seahawks. Metcalf is the wide receiver 1. He's getting a lot of targets. He's a big guy. I can see him getting in the end zone as well. And the last one is Marvin Harrison Jr. I feel like he's the only option for them when it comes to scoring touchdowns through the air. So I can see him getting in the end zone, despite the fact I said the Lions will win. He's at 13-8. It's the odds that I liked on it more than anything. And that all comes in at just under 15-1, 14.84-1, Adam. Maybe Marvin Harrison's the weak link in this, maybe, but I don't know if it feels quite strong.
Yeah, I think it's a fairly decent bet. We've kind of gone down similar avenues again, not quite the same, but reasonably similar. I've also got Marvin Harrison at 13-8. As you said, he is the main guy in this offense now, and I was a little surprised that he was as big as he was, given the performance last week, because it really did feel quite easy last week for him.
I think when I went on to that match to look at the odds to pick a player, I was looking for a Lions player and realised that Marvin Harrison Jr. was, and then changed my mind. So You know, it's shocking that we're getting him at this odds so early.
Yeah, I agree. It seemed weird. So yeah, I mean, I've gone for Harrison as well. Kind of a similar logic to you with Metcalf, but I've gone for JSN. I just think it's the targets. He got again another one, got an insane amount of targets last week, and I think that Metcalf is obviously the number one. To a certain degree, that kind of makes me want to go for the number 2 guy because I just think it means that Metcalf is going to get the best guy on him. So I do like Jackson Smith and Jigba for this one at 7-4. And then I kind of chickened out a little bit. It was a little bit like I wanted to go against the Ravens defense. So I was going for the Cowboys and I kind of wanted to go Brandon Cooks, but I've gone for CeeDee Lamb instead. I just think that Lamb is the obvious one who's going to score. And also, I kind of I feel like Lamb is the same as Hill now. I think if you can get them at
The
odds against, you back them. And I know that Hill he's also odds against this week, but he's got a quarterback who can't really do a lot. Whereas for Dak is more than capable of being able to put touchdowns up, and Lamb is 11-10. And I was just a little bit like, I think that's the way forward for it, rather than I think Cooks is going to be a big play, could work, but I think Lamb definitely will. So it's 14.15-1. So it's a little bit shorter than what the others have been. But yeah, it's not too bad. So yeah, I was quite happy with that.
Just had a look. 16 targets for JSN, 14 targets for Metcalf. So
yeah, so I mean it's pretty equal. It wouldn't surprise me if both of them scored.
Well, that's all we've got time for. Hopefully, we've got plenty of winners in there again. Hopefully, the trebles. I'm really hot on these trebles this week. I think yours are great. I think mine are great. I think we've got a really good shot at getting some winners in there.
Well, we always think they're great because we do them.
I mean, we had some long odds last week and we were a little bit 50-50 with some of the late games.
It happens every year. This is always the same every year. It takes about 3 or 4 weeks to be able to work out what's happening and where everyone's going. And you start seeing these sort of passing and rushing numbers of where these teams start working out, and then you can exploit it and you can see where you need to go. So hopefully in the next few weeks, we might actually start getting somewhere.
Yeah, I think if Marvin Harrison stays at this, he might be our Rashee Rice of last year. So
I'd be surprised if he stayed.
But good luck to everyone's teams who are playing this week. We'll be back as always same time next week. But till then, guys, keep it with the franchise tag and see you again very soon.